Welcome to the Power of Partnership podcast. I'm Riane Eisler, President of the Center for Partnership Systems. This podcast brings you voices from the partnership movement, people using partnership practices to build a world that values caring, nature, and shared prosperity. The Power of Partnership podcast is hosted by Cherry Jacobs Pruitt, a health policy and partnership scholar. Today, Cherry interviews Dr. Julie Hanks, therapist, author, relationship expert, and host of the Ask Dr. Julie podcast. I'm bringing partnership home to support world peace. And now on to today's POP podcast.
Welcome, Julie. On behalf of Riane Eisler and the entire Center for Partnership teams, I want to thank you and welcome you to the Power of Partnership podcast.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you, Cherry.
So let's start today with you just sharing with our listeners a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, so I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist for about 30 years. I own some therapy clinics in Utah. So I train and supervise other therapists. And I'm really big on mentoring, particularly mentoring younger female therapists. And I also do a lot of work in the Latter-day Saint, the Mormon community, trying to give women more of a voice and create more equality and have people have healthier relationships with the church and more of a partnership relationship with their religion. And then I'm also a wife of 35 years, a mother of 4, and expecting my 5th grandbaby next month. So my family is really important to me. And family's important, faith's important, and everywhere I go, I try to spread partnership. And I've tried to create partnership in my own home. And so I have a great partnership with my husband, who's been really supportive of my work through the years.
Can you tell me how and when you first learned about Riane Eisler's work?
Yes. So I was introduced to Riane's work during my PhD program. Doing my research, I was studying creative productivity of mothers, and I was in a PhD in marriage and family therapy. So I've been a therapist for about 30 years. And I was studying creative productivity of mothers, and I stumbled upon an article by Riane and Alfonso Monturi that applied the dominator partnership lens to creativity and creative productivity, and how we view what is creative and what is, a masterpiece by male terms, by a dominator term, right? Who creates the most, the best, who's the most well-known, right? Their ranking. And it blew my mind. It was one of those like the heavens opened and oh my gosh, this explains so much, not just in creativity, but just in the world and in relationships. And so that was my first introduction. And then I started reading everything that Riane has written, not everything, but like all the books. And so I ended up using cultural transformation theory as the foundation for my dissertation study. And I applied, and so I took cultural transformation and partnership and kind of thought, okay, what would that look like day to day in a family life? How would a family have to organize? And that's actually the way to support creative productivity of mothers, is by creating partnership at home and supporting men and women equally. So that was my introduction. And it's been really fun to have a personal relationship with Riane. She wrote the foreword to a book that I wrote called The Assertiveness Guide for Women. And that was kind of like one of those, just like cherry on the top, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this woman whose work has impacted me and the way I view the world was willing to write something for me. So I've also published an article in the Interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies on the model that I created for my dissertation study. So I'm just a huge fan of cultural transformation theory, and it impacts how I view the world now and how I view all systems at every level.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I'm wondering if you can speak about the awareness of Riane Eisler's work to some of the families that you work with as a therapist and in the training that you provide to other therapists.
Right. I think the biggest thing that I try to do is help people see and understand what partnership is, that there's another way. We assume that domination is the only way to win politically, to be, on top in a relationship, to kind of have more power. And I try to run my business, my therapy clinics with partnership in mind, that it's collaborative. I really think about this, like my job is to actualize all of my employees and the therapists that work for me, not to, exploit them and right, but to help them become their best selves. So really teaching partnership and helping people have that aha of, oh, there's actually another way to fundamentally organize or to create, to interact with politics or to be in a relationship or to run a business. I think that's been the most powerful thing that I've found, is just showing that there is another way. And in terms of religion, the partnership model actually fits with Mormon scripture really well in terms of what can be created. And so I found that really fascinating, that there are actual scriptures that support Riane's work. And so I've loved kind of weaving that together.
So can you share a little bit more about what that looks like in terms of being a business owner and really being intentional about running a partnership-based business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I care more about the lives of my employees than I do about their productivity. I care about their productivity, right? There's certain benchmarks, but I want them to have an amazing life. And if that includes working with me, great. But when that is not a good fit anymore, I will help them find their next thing. There's not a scarcity or a threat. I ask for feedback. I'm available. Anyone can just message me and say, hey, can I meet with you? And I will talk with them about anything related to their life, not just their work, because I want to support them as human beings first. And what I found is when people feel valued as human beings, they work hard, they're committed. They do, they come to work and they feel calm, and then they do better work for clients. And then we help the community. And so it's really informed just the structure, right? And my responsibility as a business owner, that my job is to lift everyone that works with me, whether it's, the office assistant or one of the therapists or the graphic designer or whoever. My job is to help lift them and to help them become the best version of themselves. And what I found is that people will work hard because they feel valued and cared about.
Beautiful. So, Julie, can we talk just a little bit more about the podcast that you started?
Yeah, I love talking with people. I mean, obviously, I'm a therapist. And I also, several years ago, well over a decade ago, really caught the vision of technology and the internet, and that's the way to reach more people. Like, I love the one-on-one or the family, working with a family or a couple. but there, with technology and the internet, there's a way to reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, right? Which is why you're doing this podcast. And so the podcast is another way for me to help people. And I thought if I can do kind of most of them are these mini coaching sessions where someone brings in an issue and I walk them through it. But the goal is for everyone who's listening, even if they don't have the exact same issue, to have a tool or a skill or some aha where they see their life differently or they can do something differently. And so it's just another way to share the things that I've learned. And a lot of the people that I interview or that ask me a question on the podcast tend to have a kind of, an LDS or Latter-day Saint Mormon background. And so that's been fun to kind of talk about the interplay there. And I primarily have women on my podcast. So it's for women. And I'm really big on women's empowerment. So that's how that got started a few years ago. And it's been really fun and just a different way to support women to create amazing lives.
And the name of the podcast for our guests to access is Ask Dr. Julie Hanks.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. You are listening to the Power of Partnership podcast. We hope you are enjoying today's episode and you will consider joining our family of sponsors. Or you can help us attract sponsors by downloading, following, or subscribing to the series and liking and rating each episode you view on YouTube. We also would love to hear from you, including if you have a partnership story that you would like to share. Reach out to us at center@partnershipway.org. And now, back to today's episode. And do you have any stories from the podcast about times when it was important to you to share Riane's cultural transformation work?
I use the principles all of the time. And there were several where one of the questions was related to marriage or, intimate partners at home and kind of dividing up chores and things like that, where it's really getting in there and working with partnership at home, right? Like why, because you are a female, are you taking on these jobs? Like, is that what you want to be doing? Is that where your gifts are? And why is that defaulting? And so really kind of helping people unpack the rigid gender roles has been a big part of the podcast.
So can you share a little bit more about the article that you published in the Interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So what I did in my dissertation, it was specifically about supporting creative productivity of mothers. What I realized after I finished it was that the model that I created was just a really good model of family life and how to organize families around partnership. And so I took that model out and condensed it and then published in the journal. And I developed what's called a partnership model of family organization. And there are 8 C's. All of them start with the letter C, and it kind of outlines, here's how you organize a family and structure your family if you would like to create a partnership family organization. And so that's published, that was from 2015. And I've gotten just really great response from it. And then I've also taken those 8 C's of the partnership model and created kind of a webinar course that people can get on my website.
Beautiful. And I will include access to both of those resources in the show notes for today. However, for our listeners who are excited to learn more about those tools in their families, can you share a bit about those?
Yeah. So the first one is cooperative adult leadership. So that the adults in the family, whether it's, heterosexual, gay couple, whatever, whoever, that adults cooperate together and they're the hierarchy of actualization in the family. The second is connecting orientation, and that is, replacing ranking with connection. That connection is what the family is structured around and linking. The third is caretaking emphasis. So that nurturing of each other is everyone's job. It's not just a, woman's work, that everyone contributes to caring for each other. The fourth is collaborative roles and rules. So everyone participates in kind of who does what, and in the family, it's not a dominator, like this is your job, this is what you do. So there's that. And then 5 is celebration of all contributions. So traditionally masculine or feminine traits are all celebrated. Everyone's contribution is valued in family life. Number 6 is compassionate communication. So, or nonviolent communication, right? That respectful solutions are sought. There's not shame, guilt, or physical violence used in communicating. And then this number 7 is conscious language use. So 6 is how you communicate, but 7 is the word choices, right? So words are the epistemological knife that we draw distinctions about our experience. And so the words that we use make a difference. And so being aware of and sensitive to gendered language that favors, men over women, and trying to make that gender neutral, cultural differences, avoiding stereotypes. And then number 8 is creation and collection of partnership stories. So really consciously seeking out stories that are nonviolent, that have female or minority main characters, and not just collecting that, but also creating that, like using our creativity to generate partnership stories in our family life. So those are the 8 C's that families can organize around, that kind of just a brief summary of my partnership model of family organization.
Beautiful. Wow. And how about the webinar series? Can you tell us how the webinar series is offered?
Yeah. It's just actually, I think it's a 90-minute course. So it's just a one-time webinar. You can watch it in chunks, or you can watch it all together. And I go through each of these in depth, give examples of what this looks like, boots on the ground in family life. And so it's really accessible. And then I also have a packet. It's like a mini ebook about this model, and there are questions. There's a little test you can take, and so that's also available on my website.
And what kind of feedback have you gotten? Like, do you know how many people are being able to access? I mean, this is just beautiful. Every family, if we could have every family in the world just follow those 8 components, I think we'd have a world that's much, much more peaceful.
Yes, definitely. Yes, hundreds of people have taken the webinar. It's been one of my most popular ones, and then I also share a lot about partnership and marriage on social media. And so, actually, recently I've had several men come up to me, because in my community I'm kind of recognizable just because of my social media and media presence. And men have come up and said, "Thank you for like helping me see the patriarchy or domination that I inherited, and helping me really value my female partner more." And so that's always a payday to get that feedback.
So, Julie, before we close today, I wonder if you have any final words that you'd like to share with our audience.
Yeah, I really believe that partnership starts at home, and that if we raise the next generations with partnership at home, that's the way to change the world. Because we raise children that grow up thinking men and women are equal, and peace is a good solution, and I care for other people, and I can find solutions that work for everyone, and I can run a business that has a partnership model, because that's just the default, instead of the default being the domination. And so that's where my passion comes from. I just think if we can just raise little people from the ground up thinking partnership is the norm, that changes all of the other systems.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure interviewing you today.
Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Partnership podcast. We're grateful to Rising Appalachia for the use of resilience as our Power of Partnership theme music. If you would like us to feature your partnership story, or if you would like to be a proud sponsor of the Power of Partnership podcast, please contact us at center@partnershipway.org. We hope you enjoyed this episode and will leave us a review on your favorite podcast channel. And don't forget to subscribe to be notified when new episodes are released. I'm Cherry Jacobs Pruitt. See you next time on the Power of Partnership podcast.
I am resilient. I trust the movement. I negate the chaos. Uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to live.